mind, y'all. Y'all think it's me. I'm telling you, it's her.
Start your day with God. That is my message to the world.
Welcome to the Inspiring with Purpose podcast. We are so excited that you're here.
Good to see you.
I'm so excited about our episode today. We have Greg Richardson here with us. He is the owner and operator of the Summer Moon Coffee Shop. And there's 6 locations that they have right now. They're looking at future locations. He has an incredible story. Father of 6 children, married for 21 years. And this is a leader who's investing in the next generation and making an impact in business as well as the body of Christ. Welcome to the show, Greg. We're so excited to have you.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Absolutely. So we want to jump right in.
No, I can't wait.
So Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And we'd love to know how you got to the point where you are now the owner-operator of 6 locations of Summer Moon Coffee.
My background before this, I had never worked in coffee. I'd never worked in a restaurant before. I spent about a decade in accounting. And so I did finance and accounting.
A former accountant.
Yes. So
now you own coffee shops.
Yeah. So I was counting beans back then, and now I count beans now. There's a different kind of beans.
Oh my goodness.
So there's a great story, and there's so much I could tell. But the part of my background as a finance professional, I worked for a pharmaceutical company for 8 years, and the Lord blessed me, gave me lots of favor. I had several promotions in a short amount of time, but I was getting burned out. It was always more that the company was demanding from me, and I wanted to work hard and provide for my family, but it was getting to where it was like taking too much away.
Wow.
And I just had this sense that I needed to do something different. And one evening I had a prophetic dream that I needed to quit my job.
Wow.
And I was flying a plane, and the plane had the propeller on the back, and it was backwards. And then it had the name of my company on the plane. And then the plane started falling apart.
In the dream?
In the dream, while I was flying it.
What?
And it was one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had. I woke up in a cold sweat, and there was another part of my dream where
That's one of those dreams where you know the Lord speaking.
I know
you can't
the Lord.
even ignore it.
Yes, I could not ignore it.
Backward propeller on the plane. I'm like, Lord, come on.
He's
we gotta
very
land.
clear.
Yeah, and then at one point in the dream, the plane was headed towards me and my wife. We were on the runway, and it's kind of doesn't always make sense. It flashes forward into another frame, but it was coming towards us. So I knew it was a threat towards my family.
Wow.
For me to stay where I was. And so I woke up from that dream very motivated to find another job, and I was like, this was the Lord speaking to us.
What got you into accounting? Was that always like a dream of yours to be an accountant?
It was something that was more of a practical thing. Like, I graduated from business school, and my advisor said, accounting is a good field to go into. Why don't you do that? So it's secure, it provides for my family, and it did that, and it opened up a lot of opportunities. But I wouldn't say it was my lifelong passion. I was more of a people person, but I learned how to do the spreadsheets and the numbers and everything. And so I had the opportunity to grow in that profession, but it was not something I necessarily wanted to do forever.
Wow. So you have this background. And you're working in executive, you're growing, you're kind of climbing the corporate ladder, and then boom, have this prophetic dream, backwards propellers, planes coming at you. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to crash and burn.
Yes.
And then what happens after the dream?
I just start putting my resume out.
I see.
And I figured I need to work somewhere else that's a slower pace. That's kind of what I was thinking.
But at this time at your job, were you like facing any hardships or... were you thriving in your career at this time?
I'd been getting more favor with work, so there was this career path for me. In fact, there was an opportunity for me to move internationally with my company, but we felt like that wasn't the right move for our family, because with every promotion there came more responsibility, more demands, and so I just felt like that wasn't the path we were supposed to go on. But I didn't know what the other path was. And I actually couldn't even get another interview. At this time, the economy was good, but I was getting no callbacks on my resume.
With the degree and experience.
Wow.
No call.
And even on things that I felt overqualified for, I was still not getting interviews. And that went on for about a year of just silence.
Wow.
Nothing happening. And so I was beginning to doubt the dream, like, well,
Wow.
was that really the Lord? And I felt like I'm supposed to get another job, but nothing else was happening.
So you were stuck between a dream and a job.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
How many of you out there feel like you're stuck between a dream and a job? What do you do, especially if God's spoken to you, but you're in a job that you feel like has dried up, there's nothing there, there's no favor, and it's time to move on, but you don't know what to do. Although you put out resumes, there's no traction, there's no feedback. How do you handle
even
that?
in Greg's case, I mean, he's at a job, there is favor, there's promotion, but that check, you know, you feel like the Lord is saying something otherwise.
But he took the step of faith.
Right.
He put the resumes out, and it's been a year. So how do you? What happens now?
Yeah, so I just said, Lord, I'm just gonna trust you. You're the one that gave me the dream. You know, I'm supposed to stay here for at least now until you open up another door. And when I kind of got to that point where I just released it back to him, within a few months is when we had a breakthrough. And I got a phone call in the middle of my workday. I'm in between meetings, and I get a phone call from my pastor at the time. His name is Michael Roundtree. And he called me and said, hey, Greg, I've been praying for you for your job breakthrough. And I had this dream last night that you and Laura opened a coffee shop. And it was a blessing to your family and the community. This was around like September of 2015 when he's calling me. And he said, in my dream, it was really clear, November 2016. That was the date. It flashed.
Wow,
out.
that was specific.
It was very specific. He said, your kids are involved in the business, and there was no more tension between you and your wife with, work versus home, and really unifying for your family. And he was like, have you been thinking about coffee? And I said, no, I have not been thinking about coffee, but I am now. And so, and I've always loved coffee, and I love drinking it, and I love, I just had a really profound, coffee experience in Ethiopia the year before, where we were able to visit some people in their homes and have a coffee ceremony where they go through this really unique process with how they brew the coffee. So I was like really enthralled with that experience coming into this dream, and so I thought, well, maybe there's something there with finding something unique that you don't already see.
No, real quick, because I know what that feels like that tension where it's just, especially when you have a large family, and I think 6 is totally considered
Yes,
large.
100%.
And then you say you have a wife that's at home, she's homeschooling, but then your pastor said, that whole dynamic of feeling like pulled between like home and work. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it would show up just with like being able to have realistic expectations. Like I would say, well, I'm planning on getting off work today at 4:30, but then something would happen and I'd have to stay an hour later. And it was always a surprise. Yeah. And my wife is at prime time in the afternoon. She's counting on me to be there, and I was just constantly letting my family down. And it would be like little small things. It wouldn't be like a huge failure, but it was just a bunch of little times of letting them down that just add up to disappointment, and it was just strife.
Yeah.
So it definitely had an effect on your home life and would you say your marriage?
Yes,
as well,
absolutely. Just where it was hard to build trust.
Yeah.
When you have that dynamic, that happens a lot. So
a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
6 kids. The wife, it's like, okay, where's dad? Dad's getting promoted, more and more opportunity, more and more time away from home. She's probably like, Laura's probably like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing here? Like, we had all these kids, but it's kind of like, I'm just stuck. It's like, what's happening?
Right.
And you're feeling like maybe this is part of that prophetic dream, right? Where your family's being attacked.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and there was some things happening in my company that I could see now that I couldn't see then, and then they end up being sold and bought out by another company, and the culture ends up changing. But that's all later that I can see now that I couldn't see then. So that's it's really neat how the Lord protects you from things that you can't see. Yeah. And but that's. I immediately called my wife after Michael tells me about the dream about the coffee shop, and I'm really excited. I'm like, this sounds like this might be it. And then my wife was not as excited. So she's like, maybe coffee was supposed to be a metaphor.
Right.
because she's
Stay alert.
right.
she's asking good questions. She's like, "Have you ever run a coffee shop before?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "How are you going to compete with Starbucks?"
And
I
not
don't
just
know.
you've
So-
never ran a coffee shop, but you've never done business at all.
And never owned my own business.
owned a
I've
business.
Never worked in a restaurant.
Never worked in a restaurant.
That is
Had no history whatsoever
Right.
in the coffee industry, restaurant industry.
I can only imagine her face
Yeah.
at this time.
And you're like, "Hey, babe, we're gonna start a coffee shop." She's like,
do you need a nap?
"Are you serious? Was there something in the coffee you just drank? Like, what is going on?"
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So
Wow.
but she's a woman of faith, and she said, if he gave you that prophetic word, I want to believe that it can happen.
Look at that.
And she said, I just need the Lord to give me a sign.
Wow.
You know, I'm going to need some more confirmation. And so God is so gracious, because I think when we ask him for that, he's faithful to give us what we need to take the next step. So what we agreed at that moment we were going to pray, and then I was going to just do some research, just because I love to find out the details and you know, do some research. So I immediately started just exploring the ideas around coffee, like what would be something unique that we could do. And I was recalling this experience of this coffee ceremony in Ethiopia where they take you into their home. It's very much around hospitality and connecting with people, and then they actually roast the coffee there with hot coals.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
And it's like a 2 or 3 hour process to get a cup of coffee. But it's like it was just a rich experience, you know. And so I was thinking, well, that's not a very viable business model in America, but I was like, I was wondering if there's something kind of like that. And so I read an ebook on how to roast coffee with a wood fire. And so there's not a lot of people doing it. But it is how coffee would have been roasted before the Industrial
Is that how they
Revolution.
did it in Ethiopia? With
Similar,
the wood fire?
yeah, it was with wood coals.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
pretty cool.
Yeah, so there were some similarities, and so it exists, and I was like, that would be cool to roast coffee with a wood fire. And so a couple of days after that, I see a TV show on Amazon Prime, and it's on this show called Man Fire Food. You can find it today if you search for it, and you can stream it. There's an episode about Summer Moon Coffee. So Summer Moon is a company that started before I joined on. They started in 2002 in Austin, and they roast coffee with a wood fire. And I saw this
cool.
TV show about how they roast their roasting process. And it was really fascinating. And my wife was asleep. I woke her up. I said, "You got to watch this." So she watched it. She thought it was a great idea. She's like, that would do really well in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And there's nothing like that here. It's really unique. I think we're supposed to do that. That's what she said.
What?
Wow.
And so I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And in my mind, they're doing their own thing. That's their own company. I'm wondering if I could, you know, basically copy them without, you know, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
But, you know, could I build a roaster in my backyard that would function like theirs, having no idea how difficult it is. But, you know, I'm like, but I feel like the Lord is on this. We're supposed to do this. So that was a Saturday. The next morning is a Sunday morning. We're talking to my friend Alicia, and she's married to Michael, who had the dream.
Oh my goodness.
But she didn't know that much about the details or anything. She kind of heard about it. But we're talking to her, and I said, we think we know what we want to do. We want to do wood fire roasted coffee. We saw this company in Austin that's doing it. And immediately she goes, well, I'm from Austin. And she goes, was it Summer Moon? And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, we said, yeah, it's Summer Moon. She goes, that is my best friend, Amanda. We've been best friends since we were like 7 years old.
Wow.
And she talks to me all the time, and she just said that they need a partner in the Dallas area to start branching out and do like licensed shops.
Wow.
You should talk to them. And immediately I just felt the Lord, and I felt him speak to me that you don't have to build this on your own.
That's so good.
And I felt like this was this moment like where Abraham hears from God, and he says, I want you to go to a land that I'll show you, and you're going to have cisterns that you didn't dig, and you're going to have vineyards that you didn't plant.
Come on.
And I just caught this vision for how he's going to, the weight immediately lifted off of my shoulders.
Wow. Wow.
And then we had a phone call with the family that night. So I was watching them on TV on a Saturday, and then I'm talking to them about a deal on Sunday.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was our sign.
Come on.
Like, it can't get any clearer than
Yes.
this, sweetheart.
And that was the beginning of a whole new world.
I love how quickly his wife was on board with that. I mean, considering, I mean, for her to go back to the Lord and say, Lord, like, I trust you. If this is what you have, I'm full on, you know, but I just love that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, well, how much money are we going to make? And how much, and maybe she did ask those questions. I don't know, but her level of faith to go back on, Lord, like, I'll go where you call me.
Yeah, but Laura also said, I want a sign. And when they watched the video and they saw the documentary of how they're making this wood fire coffee,
right,
that's when she was like, oh yeah. And that's kind of how God spoke to her.
Right.
So I think that's pretty amazing that you guys were able to get into agreement and walk in unity like that. And
and that's been kind of a mark for how we make decisions going forward. Is we have agreement, and if we don't have agreement, we don't do it. And we've had many miraculous signs since then too. So that was just one of many to come. So
wow.
What along the way? Or you're saying
along
even
the
after
way
you started?
Yes, even after we started, just with new locations. So it's been really a faith building journey. So we've gone from one, kind of prophetic encounter to another with how we operate their business. So from the dream to now you and her being in agreement, saying we need to do this, and now having a conversation with this miraculous encounter of how God just brings you together with the people you were just watching on TV. Talk about that process into starting your own store. And opening the business, and then where you guys are today. Right. So like a lot of times when you're walking with the Lord, you feel like it's going to happen right away, and then it doesn't. Right. And then He just has this way of having you wait until the last hour before He breaks through, and then things actually happen. So I felt like we were going to sign the deal, and we were going to open a shop within a couple of months, and then we were going to go. And I remember in the back of my mind Michael's dream about November 2016, but I'm just thinking, well, we have the deal, we have it now, we should go ahead and move forward, and if it gets delayed, then it'll happen. So, and it turns out it got delayed, and we were looking for real estate, and we had several deals that we did get a contract signed with our licensor, and all that happened pretty quickly. But the real estate part just took a long time. Wow. And we kept looking, and one of the criteria we wanted was something close to home, because we wanted to still be able to have a good amount of time with family where we could break away and not be gone all the time. And so we looked close to home, and it just wasn't happening. There was several places that we looked at, and there was either something really wrong with it wasn't going to work, or we put a bid on it and somebody outbid us. Wow. And then we had a contract on a really cute house in downtown Grapevine in the historic district that we could turn into a coffee shop, but then we had zoning issues that we didn't know about, and that were going to really complicate the process, and it was risky to buy it and not necessarily have the guarantee of the zoning working out. And so that deal fell through, and I just remember feeling, and I'm still at my current job during all this. Wow. And I just remember asking the Lord, are you really going to do this? I thought this was going to happen. It looks like it's not happening. Wow. And He just spoke to me and said, expand your search. So I did. So I went to my real estate app, and instead of my little bubble, I made it the whole DFW area. And that weekend, I saw a place for sale in Frisco, which most of the commercial spaces are for lease. Right. To be able to buy something is kind of unheard of for a new business owner, because the real estate's so expensive. But this was affordable. I couldn't believe the price tag. It was a really charming old historic building on a busy street.
Now, to start a business, it sounds like it would be really expensive. So did you guys, with you being accounting, it seems like you're probably you manage your finances very well. I don't know, did you have like a nice...
So we had cash saved up, but it wasn't enough to do all of it. I had to get a loan for the rest. Okay. So I was doing like an SBA loan, and so I was working with several banks, and actually they don't put the deal together until you actually have a location, because they want to look at the whole business case. Is it viable? And once we found this location in Frisco, it was outside of our initial idea of where we wanted to be, because it was about a 45-minute drive from home.
Yeah.
And so my wife was skeptical at first. She was like, I don't know, but I somehow convinced her to drive out there on a Sunday, and we looked at it and we just peeked through the windows, and she fell in love with it right away. She was like,
awesome.
This is it.
Come on.
And so we made an offer on it that day. It had just been on the market for 2 days.
Wow.
And the Lord just provided a way for us to get the offer accepted, but we didn't have the financing yet. And I had 3 banks turn me down in the process of this financing deal, because they didn't think the location was viable. There had been several other businesses on that street that hadn't made it, that had gone out. And so they just weren't interested in taking any risks. But I just knew that it was going to be successful. And I finally found somebody to do the deal. And we have like an option period with our contract. And it was like, it didn't get approved with that bank until like the day before our option period expired.
Wow.
So, and I just remember falling on my knees and just praising the Lord. And
wow.
How did the whole family feel? Like the kids and everything?
Oh yeah, it was just such a relief. Like I literally felt like I didn't know if it was going to happen.
Wow.
Even with all the signs we had seen and the prophetic word, and so the Lord really tested our faith, in that.
Wow.
But it was such a joy and such a relief. Like in that moment, I knew this is actually going to happen.
Wow.
Now, did you have like a fallback plan in case it didn't, or?
I mean, I was still at my job, and so I'm trying to work the real estate thing while I'm at my job. And we would pack. My kids were really young at the time. We would pack them in the car and go drive, look at coffee shops, and every time we'd tell them we were going to do that, they would sigh and then be like, "Oh, again,
Another coffee shop. I smell like coffee. My clothes smell like coffee."
Right.
So, but then it was just a long time of searching, and even when we did get the financing approved, then it's now about permits and construction.
Yeah, permits
just a lot.
Like, oof.
So there's just so many hurdles as a business owner that you don't think about until you're in it, and there's a lot of opposition to being able to break through and actually make it happen.
Now, was it just you and your wife that was doing the whole process, or were you mainly leading it?
So I was mainly leading it,
and
she was my discerning advisor and coach, and has been kind of in that role along the way. So we always have where I'm mostly in the details, and she's my person I go to at the end of the day, where we just talk through it and process and make decisions.
Wow.
And so we've been very unified in that, and I say to people all the time, if it doesn't work if it's my business. We have to be business partners in this, or it's not going to work.
Right.
And so even though she's not in the day-to-day operations, she's my partner 50% all the way.
Now, when you say like it's not going to work unless the two are are together, what do you mean by that?
I just the being unified in our decisions. So if it's not ours together, then I can come up with another idea that I think is a good idea, and she may not like it. If we just do it anyway, even if she says, you know what, just do it. If you feel that passionate about it, just do it anyway. I feel like we're going to be missing something.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this, Greg. So when you think about the level of respect that you and Laura have for each other, I love how you guys make your decisions together. You wait, you're patient, and you're both hearing the Lord. What would you say to a couple who may be in the middle of a season where they're stuck between a dream and a destiny, a dream and a job, and they're trying to step into that space, but they may not be in agreement? And you talked about the obstacles, the opposition that you faced, and how you guys stayed persistent. What would you say to encourage someone who's in that situation, but they may be facing some opposition or they're not necessarily fully in agreement?
Yeah, I think it's just worth it to wait. I think it's just worth it to wait.
So if she had said, no, I don't want to do the coffee, you're crazy, I'm not doing this, would you have just stayed at the job? What would you have done?
Yeah, I would have stayed.
You would have stayed.
I would have stayed, and I would have just waited and prayed. And sometimes, as married couples, you don't always agree, right?
Yeah,
so that's normal,
that's
and
right.
that's fine,
Right.
But you, on something like that, I feel like we have to agree. And if I know the Lord's telling me one thing and my wife doesn't agree, well, then I just pray and I just say, Lord, she's your daughter. You speak to her, and
It's good.
And he does. He's faithful.
That's amazing. So good. So if you could tell us where you guys currently are now.
Yeah.
You went through this journey.
Yeah.
And you're facing these obstacles, permits and zoning and other issues. It's like, how long was that process? And then tell us where you are today after overcoming all that.
So that was in 2016. We're going through that process.
16.
Okay.
And then we actually do start construction November 2016.
Okay.
I thought we would be open. It was still a profound date. It was still relevant. That was kind of when we broke ground and started building it out. And I actually gave my 2 weeks notice with my job right at the end of November.
Right after
Wow.
you started building it out.
Wow.
Yeah, because for me to be involved in the construction process and have another job, it just wasn't going to work.
It's too much.
I had to be out there, several times a week in order to make sure things were going well.
Gotcha.
And I'd never built anything before. And I had a general contractor, but it's the first time I'm working with this person, and there's so many decisions to be made, and so I just had to be very involved. So I quit my job in faith, and I'm thinking at the time.
What month was that?
That was the beginning of December 2016 when I left my job, and I'm thinking we'll be open before Christmas. Right? How long does it take to build a coffee shop? It seems like. So, but that didn't happen, and so we get to that point, and I don't have a salary anymore. We're living off our savings, and that savings is what I wanted to invest into the business, and it starts depleting pretty quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
And we charge up credit cards to help cushion everything, and so we're incurring more debt doing this, and it's not ideal, but I just feel like, okay, we just have to get over the hump, and then we can start
making profit.
Start making profit and everything. And then we had another unexpected delay with our health inspection. They didn't approve my hot water heater. I had to get a bigger, fancier hot water heater to meet their requirements, and so that cost me another month just for the hot water heater because it was a special order thing.
Wow.
So we finally opened in March of 2017, and my daughter Emma, at the time, she was probably about 12 years old, maybe 11, and she had a dream that it was opening day, and we had a line out the door around the corner.
Really?
Coffee.
Yeah,
That's so awesome.
and so we were just believing for that. And so we we'd done some promotions on social media and everything, and we had a group come from Summer Moon in Austin to help train us.
Okay. Are they still? Do they still have that business?
Yes.
in Austin?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're still very involved, and so they come to help us train, and they really weren't expecting that much either. They were like, it's the first time we've opened in Dallas. Not everybody knows who we are.
Yeah.
And then opening day, we literally had a line out the door around
That's awesome.
the corner to the
What?
building, and we looked at each other and we were like,
this is it. Look at
Wow.
this.
Wow.
and I had only hired maybe 8 people to work for me at the time. I immediately had to double my workforce, and so we from day one we walked into a pretty mature business
That's amazing.
that was generating cash from day one, and
That's so awesome.
and then having all the operational demands of a thriving business too. So
Wow.
it was a blessing. So
Wow.
Yeah. What did this process do for your kids and their spirituality or their relationship with Christ? What did it do?
yeah, I think that
That's
we're
great.
still learning how to describe what it's doing, but I definitely know that it's helped them to have faith and to see the Lord come through and deliver in miraculous ways, and just to see how we as a family, we talk about how the Lord's speaking to us. Whenever we are helping them navigate decisions for school or for what they want to do with their life, we're always centered around, well, what is the Lord saying to you? Because you can come up with a plan and it might sound good and you could even accomplish that plan, but when you get to the end of it, if the Lord doesn't tell you to do it, you're going to be empty. So
it's amazing.
So they're learning that, and I feel like we're living that example for them. So
love it.
Our prayer is that they really grab onto that and just to walk with the Lord. So it's given us also, by being self-employed, we have freedom. So we can take vacations when it's a good time for our family to take vacations. We spend a lot of time in the prayer room.
Come on.
So we are usually at our church 3 to 4 times a week in prayer meetings, and we can go as a family, and so that's helped steer our purpose as a family. So
love it.
Yeah.
Well, with our time coming to a close, if there was anything that you can say now that you've gone through this beautiful journey of faith over fear, being stuck between a job and a dream, stepping into your destiny based on what God has spoken to you and your wife, having 6 amazing children, being married for over 2 decades, and now expanding in the DFW area after having 6 locations.
Right.
Just within a few years, over 100 employees. What would you say to someone who may be where you were when you had the dream?
Yeah.
And they're saying, man, there's something that God's put in my heart, but I just don't know how to connect to it. And then every time I try, it seems like it's either it's too long, or there's obstacles that are preventing me. Like, did I miss God? What would you say to that person right now in our last closing thought?
Yeah, so I would say that God is kind and He's loving and He's good, and if you ask Him to show you, He will show you. And I really have faith for that, and I just impart that faith for you as well.
Come on.
That you can say, Lord, will you show me a sign? And He is that good. He doesn't have to, and He might tell you, no, I'm not going to show you a sign, but He's just that good enough that He'll do it, and I believe that for you.
Come on.
So,
can you pray? Can you pray for our listeners?
So I pray right now, Father, in the name of Jesus, that you would bless every person that is listening or watching this program, and that they would hear your voice, and that you would give them dreams and visions for the future that you have for them, Lord, and that you would just increase faith. I just pray for an increase of faith in the earth and your people, that we would expect big things, that we would dream with you, and that you would guide our steps, and it would be for your kingdom and your rule and reign on the earth. And we just bless your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. So where can people find you online if people want to get in contact with you after watching this?
Yes.
Let us know where we can find you.
Okay, sure. So summermooncoffee.com is our website. It's got all of our locations. Not all of those are my family's. We have several other owners in the company that are licensed or franchise owners.
Okay.
Anything in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is going to come to me. So if you find us on social media, Instagram is a popular one. So at Summer Moon Dallas is one of our main locations. You can message us through there or through the website. There's a contact form.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? I just want to ask this one question, because I hear different dynamics, especially with married couples, when they're like, some of them are doing different things, and you may see the results of that on the family unit, you know, when one person's doing this, one person's doing that. And we've experienced times where you were, chasing one thing and I was chasing another thing. What kind of impact has it had on just your marriage and your family, having this one kind of like collective like purpose as a family?
Yeah, I think it's definitely unified us. I can see.
It has.
I definitely see that. So, and we have, when we're talking about a new location, we bring the whole family into the discussion.
Oh my goodness!
So like
that's real. That's homeschool right
today,
there.
Today, my boys went with me to go look at some real estate. So we just bring them all into the discussion, and even if they choose to do something else later in life, if they're not going to be part of the business, they're still part of how we were building it now.
That's beautiful.
And
And they're
so-
learning those skills. That's
Yes.
amazing.
So
awesome.
I think it really lends itself to unity. So.
That's
Is
beautiful.
your wife is active in it? I mean,
She's
working?
homeschooling and homemaker, and so
Yeah.
she spends most of her hours focused on that. But
Right.
but we don't make any major decisions about like a new location or if we're going to change our employee structure or anything like that. We definitely have those discussions and work that
Yeah.
out together. So.
So she's still
beautiful.
like that. You guys are building this together.
She kind of has, and her role may change over time. She doesn't really have a desire to be behind the bar making
Yeah,
coffee,
yeah.
but she definitely is involved in the real estate side, and then on the just like how we build our culture with our employees,
Okay.
and she's more of like on the advisory side.
Yeah.
Solid
I like
partner.
that. I
Yes.
like
Yeah,
that.
I love
That
it.
role.
That's beautiful.
So-
Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
I
Greg.
know.
So honored to have you on the
I
show.
can't. I should have told you to bring some samples or something.
That-
You know,
Oh, we got the little coffee maker right there in the Keurig, right? That's not gonna cut it with it. When you talk about wood fired,
My grandma, like, she is so into coffee, and I feel so bad for her because we're just not. We're not big
We're not.
coffee drinkers.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I do make it, I don't really make a good cup of coffee. So I'm excited to come and taste a good cup of coffee.
Yes, we'll have to meet there sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for tuning in with us here on the Inspiring with Purpose podcast. I'm Mondo Davis.
And I'm Lisa Davis.
We are your co-host, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Remember that each and every one of us were born with a solution to someone else's problem. When we step into that solution, when we step into that purpose individually, collectively, we can change the world. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you soon. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. God bless, and have a great day.
Go grab a cup of coffee at Summer Moon.
Yes.
Come on. Baby, I'm not running around looking for nobody else. I've got one thing on my mind. I already